It's now time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and local perspectives of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is being brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday at 9 a.m. on local radio WMOA AM 1490 and ESPN radio WJAW FM 100.9 and AM 630. It's now time for the show. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights on a Saturday morning brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. We're joined today by Greg Henthorn. He is with Flat Rock Development. And Greg, just a little background on you from for our listeners.
Yeah, I'm originally from the Ohio Valley. I was born in New Martinsville, grew up in north central West Virginia, and have now gotten back into the area in terms of the oil and gas business in the Ohio Valley, and particularly in the Ohio side in Monroe County and Washington County.
Talk a little bit about the pedigree, I guess, or going to school and how you got into this business.
Sure, I have a few different degrees from West Virginia University, degrees in chemical engineering, have a law degree, and a master's in business administration. But really, those are the things that kind of gave me the tools to understand kind of the mechanics of the business. But first and foremost, I got to tell you, it's really a people business and a family business more than anything else. You know, what I do for Flat Rock involves weeding through the different title work and understanding the land and what it takes to prepare land for oil and gas drilling. I'll tell you, when we first got into this business, we had contemplated, maybe 40-acre or 100-acre units that we would drill a vertical well on. And you could pretty much do that on one farm. As time has evolved, the opportunity to drill longer and longer horizontal laterals has really moved the goalpost from a land perspective, so that now, instead of just having a lease with one farm, the owners of one farm, now you've got to pull together, 600, 800, over 1,000 acres into one unit that you can drill, potentially 4 or 5 or more horizontal laterals on them, each of which might be 10,000 feet or even longer. So what it takes to put the land together to drill one of those units, now you may need to put together 200 and 300 transactions just to be able to put a bit in the ground.
So you're talking about these contingent leases, maybe. So you've got this farm, and then maybe we have relatives that live next door, and they're a buy-in, but then you got to go to the next and to the next, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's a mix, because a lot of the properties have existing leases on them, and so maybe those leases were taken, could be 100 years ago, could be 5 years ago. Maybe they have wells on them, maybe they don't. And over that period of 100 years, you have various different forms of leases that provide different rights to the oil and gas operators. So a lot of times, if it's an older lease, then the operator of that lease will need to get the terms amended of that lease to go back and provide the types of rights that you need to drill the horizontal wells now. So that's sort of one piece of it. Another piece of it is the fact that these farms have had oil and gas development underneath them perhaps for over 100 years means that there may be rights that were reserved by owners of that property 100 years ago that kind of got forgotten over time. And if it's 1985 and you're drilling a $200,000 well, that might involve running the title work and looking back in time and realizing at that point that the person who lives on the property is probably the owner. However, when you're developing, $40, $50 million type properties, now all of a sudden your standards for title work are a lot higher, and you're going to go back in time. So what happens is, if a property, there might have been a land transaction, let's say 100 years ago, the person selling the property may have reserved the mineral rights, and that may have gotten lost and forgotten in time. And now that we're running title work that goes back and identifies those, we call those mineral severances, we're now finding that there may be some families that have property that they didn't know they owned. And it's been kind of interesting because we have land people who have gone out and identified these parties that we believe own rights to the minerals now. We call them up, they didn't know they owned it. And it makes for some interesting conversation.
Greg Henthorn is our guest on Energy Insights. Greg resides in Morgantown. Maybe if you could give us a little perspective as you stand in Morgantown and your business, does it relatable to here? I mean, is it similar in terms of the activity that's happening?
So my company, Flat Rock, even though we're based in Morgantown, our acreage focus is here in the area in the Ohio Valley. There is a lot of oil and gas activity in Morgantown, where I live, and most of that is centered around the Marcellus Shale. And over in this area, it's quite interesting because we have the opportunity to develop not only the Marcellus Shale, but also the Utica Shale and other formations in the area that provide a particular interest to oil and gas companies to develop the multiple formations.
Greg, I learned from these shows probably more than anybody, and I know the listeners feel the same way, and we're trying to get to the bottom of different things, or get answers to questions, or questions to answers for that matter. So we thank you for your time and your insights, and appreciate you being with us.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right. Greg Henthorn is with Flat Rock Development, our guest here today on Energy Insights, brought to you each and every Saturday morning by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WMOA and ESPN Radio WJAW as Johnny Wolf brings you your local and inside perspectives of the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley.